Hey everyone, and welcome to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Tim.
Mm, candy, man.
That's some good candy, man. There you go for. Yes, this is a horror movie podcast. We talk about horror films. We get together, we watch the movie, we sit down, and we discuss the damn thing. That's what we do. This episode is going to be a sequel movie. We did the original Candyman a few months ago, and we were going to originally do the three of them pretty close together because we were expecting the new one to be out pretty much about now. It was scheduled for June.
Yeah, I believe this. I mean, I'm not sure when it will come out, but the weekend we were recording this, I think, was the weekend it was supposed to
Oh,
come
really?
out. Yeah.
But obviously it got pushed because of everything going on in the world, so we could sort of take our time a little bit. So we're just getting to the second one now. This is Candyman Farewell to the Flesh, because even in the 90s they started to be scared of numbers. So, yes. Farewell to the Flesh. So, I actually had seen this before. I've not seen the third one. I know I've definitely not seen the third one. But there was a couple of scenes in this as I was watching it that I vaguely remembered. I'm like, okay, I have seen this. I forgot almost all of it, but I did technically see this at some point.
Yeah, me too. I might have seen this before the first one because I feel like this is something I would have rented with like my brothers or my cousins in the 90s that we would have watched because there's a few parts of it that are like super familiar to me. And then, yeah, like you said, a lot of it, forgot. But yeah, there's a few parts that stick out.
Yeah. And it's kind of scary going into this one because I feel like the first Candyman's this rich, subtext of a film with all these racial themes, and it's dealing with a lot of subjects that should not be treated in a schlocky manner. And I think there's a worry getting into a sequel of a horror movie in the 90s that I don't know if a sequel 90s horror movie is the place to be tackling like the history of slavery in America. Like I don't know if that's where that should be tackled necessarily. Sure. So but interesting to get into it. None of the main characters. There's like one minor character who comes back from the first one, who's in the opening couple of scenes. The douchebag doctor who sort of like tells Virginia Madsen in the first film about Candyman. Yeah. He's sort of been studying him. He comes back he's done like a lecture and he's booked to her at the start, but it's set in New Orleans this time, and it's set around Mardi Gras, which is kind of going on throughout the whole time. Which, and apparently, what was it says at the start? Because there's a narrator throughout this who's got this New Orleans voice. He says that Farewell to the Flesh is actually what carnival means.
Carnival. Yeah.
So that's how they justify it. The third one's called Day of the Dead. Is that actually based around Dia de los Muertos? Is that like? Have you seen it?
I have. I did like a rewatch like not too long ago, like maybe just last year. Oh boy, that the third one is it's gonna be a ride. I don't remember like too many details about it other than yikes.
But you don't remember if it was based around or involving that holiday?
Not like specifically.
Okay. I was just wondering because this one's obviously a bit based around Mardi Gras. I was wondering if there was going to be some weird, like this is the holiday themed trilogy for some reason. Even though the first holiday that comes to mind when you think of candy is obviously Halloween, but whatever. So yeah, so we'll start spoiler free as we always do. We'll give you warning before we go into the spoilers. This came out in 1995, 3 years I believe after the first one, and is directed by Bill Condon. I actually recognize that name. I'm going to click on him and see what else he's done.
He's a Twilight guy.
Is he? He is. He did Breaking Dawn 1 and 2. Oh God.
Yeah, I did the same thing you did. Yesterday because I was like, this name sounds familiar, and then I looked it up and I was like, not too happy with the results.
What? That's a hell of a career. He did Candyman Farewell to the Flesh. It ended a movie called Gods and Monsters, which has like Ian McKellen in it.
I believe it's related to Frankenstein in some way.
And then he did Kinsey, which I've never seen, but I always remember the front cover, Liam Neeson like leaning on the name.
I think it's okay.
I never seen it. And then he basically goes all the way to Twilight, Breaking Dawn Part 1 and 2. What a career! What a weird career this man's had.
Yeah.
So yeah, so basically it's about because I was being kind of a dick as I was watching this, because I watched this on stream, and I basically just kind of tried to predict what the big reveal in this movie was going to be, and I guessed it pretty much accurately very early on. But we're introduced to our main character, whose name is Annie. And if I should remember that, because I was doing a Yoki Annie like all movie long.
Okay.
But she is a teacher, and she works with a lot of the kids in the area, and they all believe in Candyman. The legend of Candyman is spread throughout the country, and she tries to prove to her kids that there's no such thing, it's not real. So she says Candyman 5 times in front of the mirror, and of course Candyman starts appearing to her. Unlike other people though, where he just shows up and kills them. Because this is the first thing I'd probably say about this movie, is there's definitely a lot more of Candyman just killing people. They definitely wanted more of a slasher movie kind of feel to a lot of his appearances. But so it's about her kind of investigating why he's so interested in her, and kind of got into the history, because that tries to do more of the origin of Candyman, because this is actually the city that he's from. This is where his character's from. So it goes into a lot of his history, and there's a lot of research into the past, and so on and so on. So I mean, it kind of does justify it in a sense with where it reveals about stuff later on, but I did think it was kind of like really like, I mean, the first movie, it was important that the lead character was white, because it was all about her arrogance and how she thinks she can just go into these black communities and she can understand everything, and that was a big part of the themes of the first film. I did think it was weird at the start of this one when I'm like, wait, it's another white woman? What? Surely we could do something different with Candyman, like in the second one, to shake things up. But somehow we have all white main characters again, because I guess.
So I'll be honest. I think this is a bad movie, but I wouldn't say I necessarily like hate it.
Sure.
Like it's not torturous, to watch. I think the two big problems that stand out to me, and I think one you're kind of getting at, is it feels like it's trying to mirror the first movie, and it's not really a pun, but it's trying to like mirror the first movie too much, like to the point where like, we open with like a fake out like death, and then we also have another like privileged white woman as a main character that is forced to go like into these communities that she's not used to, and then like you even have like a child that goes missing in the third act like the first one, where it's I think it's a little weird that it seems like there's so many parallels, and it's all, I think it's also kind of weird how it parallels the Hellraiser franchise too, because like, I mean, obviously they're both from Clive Barker, but I think it's interesting, like both have really good, I would say classic standalone first entries, and then sequels that are not as good but also like are still kind of like playing off like themes and story beats from the first one, when it's clear like the studio people really just want like another slasher franchise. Like you said, Candyman does start appearing more in this, and similar to how like Pinhead starts appearing more in Hellraiser movies, you can tell like I don't think the when you look at the first entries, these aren't set up to be like multiple films with like a slasher character, but it seems like that's what they want with the sequels.
And this even does one of those cardinal sins that a lot of sequels do, where it introduces a MacGuffin that can kill Candyman. It's like, oh, there's this item, this magical item that can kill Candyman because it's related to his backstory. Like, it does that, and that was making me cat, because Candyman, like, you see Candyman on screen within the first 5 minutes of the movie. Like, it happens super quick, and it's like, oh, in the first movie you don't even see him until at the 50-minute mark. Like, this is super quick.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird because I think it is more effective in the first movie when he is more like this legend, or I don't know, force of nature or something, like whatever you want to say, but like it's kind of hard though, because I love Tony Todd, and I think he does such a good job as the Candyman that like I yeah, like I'm not necessarily mad seeing more of him, but yeah, it doesn't really feel like that's in the spirit of the first movie, at least.
It doesn't help as well that I think that the acting quality as a whole has declined since the first movie.
Sure.
There's a
Yeah.
lot of moments in this where characters would yell something, or whenever they have to get emotional, and it would be particularly bad. You know, the brother, the main character who's investigating Candyman because his father mysteriously died, and some months ago, and his father was investigating Candyman. He
Yeah.
like has a lot of like emotional sort of outbursts when he's in the interrogation room talking, because they assume he killed the author, the professor from the first movie who dies right at the start, which I don't think it's a spoiler to say. It's the opening kill. That's what he's
Yeah.
there for. But he has a lot of really sort of dodgy acting moments. The cop that's after him is like constantly just being angry cop man without any sense of reason. The actor
Yeah.
actually I recognized because he's like the scientist who is like killed quite early on in Under Siege 2, which actually came out the same year. So this is his
Okay.
his year of fame, I guess. The only notable casting in this is Veronica Cartwright, who plays the main character's mother. She, of course, was an
Okay.
alien.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
She was the woman who's not Sigourney Weaver, an alien.
Right, right. Yes.
But she's here, and she's like the alcoholic mother who is just constantly complaining about things,
Yeah.
and needs to pour another drink. So yeah, like it has the pacing of the first one, but it doesn't really have the driving force that the first one had. It kind of feels like it's just kind of going through the motions so that it can get to the next horror scene, which is
Yeah.
something that a lot of like slasher sequels kind of end up feeling like. But the thing is that this movie, unlike say a Friday the 13th or something, like it's so obsessed with like doing more with the plot and the mystery that it's that same sort of thing we talk about with Saw, where it has to just put in so much plot that so this has like, okay, what's the mystery, and like, well, why is Candyman so interested in me, and what's going on, and what is he after, what's the purpose, and yada yada. And then on top of that, it gets kind of grotesque a little bit later on, because we actually get like a full flashback of like his murder, like what happened to him, when he was lynched essentially. We see the full thing play out, and it kind of just feels a bit gratuitous. Like, we didn't really need to see all of this. Like, this just kind of feels like, hey, we spoke about this in the first film, so let's just actually show it this time.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It feels like it doesn't really have any of the, because the first film feels like this brave new idea, and it's doing different things, and it's got something to say. This film, like almost by default, because it's copying the themes, still feels like it's okay. It's kind of in this subtext. It's still doing these things, but it's only doing it because it's copying the first one. But it doesn't actually have the balls to say or do anything new. And it feels like something as simple as let's just show the actual full lynching. It just kind of feels like a really lazy and cheap way of going, oh, we need more gore and horror and violence, so let's just show all this in its glory, for lack of a better term. So yeah, that's kind of where I fall on it. There's some weird, nonsensical sort of story beats and just weird things. Like at one point, Annie goes to like an expert who sells like ice slushies, but he's got like a secret magic like area behind his little booth, which he has lots of information about the various things going on. I don't know. It was weird.
Yeah, there's a couple of weird things like that, and then you mentioned it earlier, but I feel like the movie does not need a narrator. Like
No, not at all.
I did not like this at all, and it was like always like a surprise, like when his voice would pop up, like because I kept forgetting that it existed, and then all of a sudden like he'll start talking in a scene or something. I'm like, oh, Jesus, this guy again. And then, like you do get a brief glimpse of him like at the end, and it's just like, all right, do we need to see him? Like,
and
when
it's
he's
not,
at like,
and it's also nonsensical, just gibberish as well. It's because it's not like he gives us any valuable information. It's just like, the definition of a carnival, and like, stay safe out there, New Orleans. He's saying very just vague like, things. He's never really contributed anything to the movie.
Yeah. And then I think the other thing we gotta talk about is the CGI in this movie.
Oh my god. Oh my god. I'll be honest, there's a moment towards the end of this movie that might actually be worse than any of the CG that was in Hellraiser Bloodline. It might actually just genuinely be worse.
Yeah, it's really bad. And and it's kind of a shame because I do think some of the other like gore effects and some of the kills in the movie I think are pretty good. But yeah, there's just I guess it's only really like two instances of CGI that comes to mind.
No, but
one during the flashback and one at the end, but they're bad.
Yeah, the one at the end though is like monumental. It's like, who told a 1995 film it could have CG? It's a bad idea, right? There's films from 2005 that they don't hold up now in CG standards. 1995 doesn't even have a chance.
Yeah.
Like rough stuff, and Hellraiser Bloodline was made like a year later. It was around the same time. It wasn't like that far apart. Because this is the same year as the Power Rangers movie, and if you ever go back and rewatch that, the Zords at the end of that look pretty bad. But I mean,
were they CGI? I don't even remember.
Yeah, the CG. Yeah, the 1995 CG. And what's so funny about it is it actually means that the TV show which has a much lower budget holds up better, like Zord fight wise, just because it's like guys in suits. As silly as it may be, on the surface.
Yeah, but so there's I think like a lot of negative aspects to it, and sure, it's completely unnecessary. Like, yeah, you do not need this movie at all. But I don't know. Weirdly though, I like don't mind it. Like I do think it is still watchable, and I mean maybe it is, hanging a lot of on goodwill from like the first movie, and like I think the music is still really good in this, which I believe it's still Philip Glass. I think that did the music. So.
I mean, it's good, but it's mostly just doing the first movie again, because I mean the most memorable thing is still the theme is like, okay, I need it in my head to do it. Dun 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 dun. I'm a little bit off, but like the main theme is pretty memorable. But I mean that was in the first movie, so it's just kind of.
That's true. Yeah, it's just still playing off the first movie. So I don't know. It's definitely not the worst thing in the world. I guess maybe the best I can kind of give it is that it's like. It's okay, but unnecessary. Like,
yeah, it's just it's a forced sequel that doesn't need to exist. It's not unwatchable. I mean, I was kind of like feeling the runtime. Like I was like, oh, how much have I got left? And I was kind of checking the time a little bit. And there is fun beats in there, or even fun in a bad way though. It's like fun, stupid bits.
Sure,
for sure. So I mean, it's a rough time, and I think because the subjects that it's trying to deal with are so, so heavy and should be treated with nuance, that it kind of is this jarring, weird thing that it's just this backdrop for a horror movie. It does this kind of thing where I felt like, because in the first movie it was all about like making the main character sort of basically go through his experience, right? And in this movie it feels like it should really, like, I guess what I'm trying to say is that this movie, I was kind of feeling like I wanted Candyman to win at a certain point, where I'm like, you know what, I'm kind of just on his side here. like
sure.
That stupid white family just kind of, like, like, it didn't feel right to possibly have any of our characters kind of win and survive. It didn't feel right. For them to win because of the injustice that the Candyman faced. But... unlike the first one, this one actually has kind of a typical happier, like, oh, we defeated the evil spirit ending.
Yeah.
So that's a bit weird. All right, I think we'll give a spoiler warning so we can talk about stuff and get into it. Cool. So, yes, full spoilers for the movie. I'll thank our Patreon producers, though, before we move on. So thank you to David Short, Alison M. Fordyce, Cindy Palacios, Tyler Hess, Zammer Jammer, and Board Now. They're all patrons at the $20 above tier. They're therefore producers, but you can support us for as little as $1 per month over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, and you get a bonus episode every single month for that $1. There's a whole back catalogue now of about 17 episodes, so go and check them out. $5 tier, you get to vote once per month, and you get early access to all the episodes by a day. So yeah, it's worth having a look and see if you're interested in keeping all the content coming and support us over there. But that is that. So full spoilers for Candyman 2, Farewell to the Flesh. So
yeah, I do like that subtitle.
That's all right. Yeah, that's not bad. So the movie, as we say, opens with the author dude from the first movie, basically saying Candyman's name 5 times into the reflection on his book, because his book's so shiny. The cover's like this metallic shiny cover. Yeah. And then of course, like he does like a fake scare out with the audience where the hook comes from behind him. Here's my question: so he's doing this book tour, and he wrote a book about Candyman. Is this really the first time he ever actually said it 5 times? This is the first time someone said to him, "Oh, prove that you don't think it's real," or this is the first time.
Yeah.
Even the fact that he arranged someone with a hook to like sort of jump out and give them a scare, like this feels like something you've done at every book signing. So why is this the time that Candyman actually came for you?
That's a great question. I have no idea.
Yeah, but because the weird brother from later shows up and like sort of says he's coming for you next, you're gonna die, he's number one suspect because he gets obviously butchered in the bathroom.
Yeah. Which I feel like this scene seems so familiar to me. Like I feel like it really like stands out in that, to the point where I think I used to maybe confuse it that this was in like the first movie or something, but yeah, I feel like I must have seen this movie like first when I was a kid or something.
Yeah. I don't know. I remembered the opening. I think I remembered him. I definitely remembered the brother coming up to him in the street and being like, "Oh, you're going to be next. You're going to be next." You know. But then we're introduced to Annie, who goes to see her brother at the police station, and he's like, and he's like, "I won't tell you what I was doing or why, because I don't want you to know about any of this." Because later on, when she goes back to him later, and she said Candyman 5 times, and so she started to see him, and she started to see things, and she goes back and tells him, and he's like, "Man, this is why I didn't tell you about it. I didn't want you to like, do it." And I'm like, "Wait a minute. Under what circumstance would, like, if he told her not to say Candyman 5 times in the mirror, even if she thinks it's silly, she might have listened to him. She might have said, just in case he's right, I won't say it in the mirror." But no, he didn't tell her, so she ended up hearing about it from someone else, and she said it 5 times, and now Candyman's after her. Like, the logic does not track. That's all I'm saying.
But like her, well, like the whole thing, you kind of learn throughout the movies that like their father was obsessed with this. So did she not know it from him? Like,
apparently she didn't pay as much attention as her brother did, because her brother seemed to know all this shit. Yeah, her brother was all up in it. Because that's the thing, like he's a suspect, and like anyone Candyman kills, and then she becomes a suspect because more people keep dying. But
which again is like kind of echoing off the first movie again, because there's like a whole thing where you think the main character is like gonna start getting blamed for these murders and stuff.
Yep. So we also meet Annie's husband, who is played by the bad guy from Beverly Hills Cop 3.
Okay.
That's him. He's got a goatee in this though, and he's got the thick accent. He doesn't.
He feels like such a minor character. Like it seems like he's really not around the movie very long.
Nah, because it's very quickly that Candyman kills him. That's the other thing, is the movie plays very fast and loose with the rules. Like Candyman just seems to show up and kill anyone that's in the room with her, just to prove a point to her. But with anyone else, if they say the name, like he'll show up and kill them. Like I don't know, it's kind of weird.
There's a very specific like guideline of rules, like to summon Candyman. You do have to do this thing, but like Candyman doesn't feel like someone who's governed by rules very much, because it seems like sometimes he takes his time coming, and then sometimes it seems like he has to work through someone like the Annie, and sometimes it seems like he can just do whatever he wants, and it's a little strange.
Yeah, as evident like later on when eventually the cop gets killed in the police station, and for some reason Annie's brother just runs away and get shot, because of course they're going to shoot you if you're running away. Like,
Yeah.
like I don't know.
Especially like because they and it's dumb because like they have evidence that it's not him because when they watch it in the room, like they see him floating and stuff like.
Yeah, it's really obvious after the fact.
Yeah.
It's really obvious that it wasn't him, but he gets scared and runs, so they shoot him. But yeah, you see like the guy floating around, and he literally gets picked up by the hook and all the rest of it. But the big thing, we need to talk about what the actual big kind of thing. So they go out to her childhood home at one point, her and her husband, because she's wanting to see whatever, and she points out that that this little hut across in the backyard was where the slaves lived, because this house once belonged to people who had slaves, and it's like, okay. And as soon as she said that, I'm like, oh gee, I wonder how this connects to Candyman's past. I have to assume that like his father, because we know his father was a slave. Like this is probably where this came from. It goes even further with that actually later on. We find out that the woman that Candyman was with, the reason why he was hunted and killed, is actually her ancestor, and that she was pregnant when he was killed, and she herself, Annie herself, is a descendant of Candyman. Which is an interesting place to take it. I did not expect it. You have this thing where her mother, the drunken mother, actually kind of knows this and is just trying to cover it up and hide it, which is an interesting like tactic. I mean, I think if I'm going to give this movie any credit, is that the first movie is clearly about kind of like this person who has privilege, who basically doesn't realize how bad it is for others, and kind of investigates it and sort of discovers it and then ultimately experiences it, right? The second movie, I suppose you're saying, is maybe a bit more veered towards the idea of like white families trying to hide their past and try to bury like what their families have done and so on and so on. I don't think there's a good job of it, but I mean, at least that's what it's kind of trying to hit at, I suppose.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea, but yeah, it definitely doesn't really do anything good with it.
That's what I meant earlier when I said that it kind of tries to like justify why it's got white main characters again. Is that that's kind of the perspective it's taken by the end, is that it's about this family hiding its past. I'm like, okay, so there's actually like a valid point there to be made. It does kind of feel like though for a Candyman sequel, it'd be like, okay, maybe it's time to actually shift gears a little bit. And since it's such a it's so about black people, maybe there should be a black main character. And obviously the new movie is doing that. The new movie's about that. Like the trailer shows that clearly. I have no idea about 3. Is 3 get a white main character?
I don't even remember like anything about it. I just remember not liking it.
Yes. I mean, obviously, there's many a reason why the third one will be terrible. I have no idea. So, yeah, that's the big thing. And like Annie's investigating. She goes to this guy that her dad went to like get intel, because it turns out the mirror that belonged to her ancestor that was used to like help him paint her, because that was the whole thing. Is he was hired to paint her and they fell in love. And of course she eventually encounters Candyman later in the film, and we get this extended flashback showing the entire lynching and like them cutting off his hand, covering him in honey so the bees would come and like sting him.
And then that's how he gets a name. Like a kid tastes some of the honey and says Candyman, which is kind of weird, but all right.
Yes, and then he actually says it's his last words as he's dying. As well, he says it as he's dying. He's like,
yeah, and I think he's like looking in the mirror as he says it.
Yeah. So it's a pretty, I don't know, it's a pretty weird sort of scene.
And then, oh boy, when those bees come.
Oh yeah, the CG. I mean, they're actually topped a couple. Not even 10 minutes later they're topped. But yeah, they look bad. They look very bad. It's a rough time because one of Annie's kids goes missing, as you said earlier, and her father's actually a priest, a reverend, in the black community, and they all kind of treat her a bit weird because she's not really supposed to be there. She sticks out a place, but goes to speak to this reverend about her son or about his son rather, and about what's going on, and there's yeah.
And I forget, is he like trying to be reborn or something?
Candyman?
Yeah, like was that the whole point of it? Like, why did he kidnap the kid?
Well, no, he didn't kidnap the kid. That was the whole thing, right? The kid just ran away because he's just hiding in the house at the
Oh,
end
right,
because he's
right. Yeah.
scared. He never actually
Okay.
kidnaps the kid.
And
Well, I
then
mean,
he
in the second movie, that is. Yeah.
right, yeah, okay. And then is the I thought he mentioned something about being reborn. I'm not sure. I don't know if it was the child and Annie
Well, yeah,
that
because
he was.
we find out that Annie's also pregnant.
Yeah.
From her husband before he died. So yeah,
This
I
is
think
like it's not like I don't want to sound like the plot is necessarily hard to follow, but it is like kind of convoluted. There's like a lot going on.
it's definitely convoluted. There's no question because there's entire portions that we're kind of glossing over where she's kind of on the run from the police and she's kind of sneaking in the back doors of places and stuff. I don't know. There's a lot of elements like that just feel kind of like I don't know. They're here to give the movie plot. She eventually
Yeah.
confronts her mother about everything. Her mother just like yells and doesn't want to talk about it, the whole thing. And of course, she meets her demise. But yeah, I mean, I can't get over the CG. Like because the mirror is there. The mirror is like in the basically the slave's hut. That that's where the final confrontation takes place.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, but then like yeah, you kind of forget part of the movie is like a quest for this mirror because
Yeah.
apparently the mirror can kill Candyman.
Yes. And when it does get smashed eventually, which it happens by the way, because the whole place is flooding, there's like a storm going on, the whole place is flooding. But when she eventually smashes the mirror, Candyman like cracks and then like shatters like glass, and oh boy, the CG.
It's so bad.
I can't even begin to describe how bad the CG looked. It was something else. And this is the thing. So a bunch of her school kids, right, her class, like show up to like save her. And what's so weird about this is that I don't think they make this a big enough element in the movie to really like be like, yeah, the kids are here to save her. Like it felt kind of just weird and tacked on. As did the scene in the middle of the movie where two of the kids go to her mother's apartment to talk to her. And I'm like, first of all, why do they know where her mother lives? Never mind where she lives. And how weird it is for two kids from your middle school class come to see you at home. I don't know. All of it just is weird.
Yeah.
All of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Like, it doesn't feel like it's like how long was it? It was like 90 something minutes.
It's like 95. It was like 5 minutes too long.
Yeah, because it feels like there's definitely some padding there that you could take out. Like even 90 minutes. Like yeah, it probably could have been like an 85-minute movie.
Yeah, I think so too. It's obviously Tony Todd's very good because Tony Todd's still Tony Todd, but everyone else is kind of the caliber of acting definitely dropped down for some, for more than others, for sure.
Yeah.
The brother especially was really quite comically bad at points.
Yeah.
Which is a shame. It's just it is what it is. So she smashes the mirror and she actually the movie ends with her like walking with the kid that disappeared before. Because this kid keeps having visions. He draws Candyman a lot. There's a lot of drawings.
Oh yeah.
Which seems to be something that he inspires in people anyway. Because there's like paintings in the house now of him, and that was the same in the first movie. In the abandoned apartments, there was like big murals of Candyman. It almost feels like some people get this like connection to him, and they sense him, and they have to like get it out in their artwork or something.
Yeah.
Like, so it's a thing.
Yeah, and then don't forget we have like a little.
Epilogue. There's an epilogue. You're right.
I guess. Yeah,
yes.
With her child.
Which is like 6 years later, because the kid's like 5 or 6. So this is like years later. The kid's in bed and she's getting told a bedtime story, and she eventually asks about something, and she's like, "Oh, when you're older, I'll tell you that story." Like, I can't tell you about all that stuff right now, and. For no reason whatsoever, when she leaves the room, the kid just looks into her like like I think it's like a spinning like thing above her bed, like the glass, the reflection,
mobile thing, or whatever.
Maybe she's not fair. Maybe she's about like 3 or 4. But I mean, the point is, it's still years later. She's talking. And she starts saying Candyman, and I'm like, why does she even know that word? And why does she know how to say it in the mirror? Like, her mother clearly doesn't want to tell her about any of this stuff yet because she's too young. So why would she even think of saying Candyman? Maybe it's implying that like he is kind of like in there, like his essence is passed on down through the generations. I don't know, but it does this thing where she says it 4 times and then she's about to say it the 5th time, and then the mum comes in and like shuts her up.
Yeah,
basically. So it doesn't do that dark like ending where things are really bad. It does the almost really bad, and then it's like no, none of that.
Yeah.
None of that.
It's like so cheesy though, because it's like, you might as well have a like, wah wah sound effect or something like to it. Like it's it didn't necessarily work for me, but I thought the same thing that you did though. Like I was like, how does it know that like what Candyman is?
How does it know?
Like,
How does it...
as the child.
the child it. No, it's a really, yeah, the ending's kind of this whimper. The whole thing just feels really undercooked and convoluted,
Yeah.
and it really does feel like a mid-90s horror sequel. It really has that feeling,
Yeah.
like the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, like, I feel like I probably would have been like more fine if they just wanted to do like a typical, like, let's just make it like a slasher movie or whatever, and people say the name and he comes up and kills them. Like, it's not really the essence of the first movie, but probably would have been better, and instead of like trying to jam so much like unnecessary backstory and origin and stuff, and then like, yeah, like you said, just having like this random item that all of a sudden it's his weakness that we never knew about in the like first movie. Yeah, a lot of that stuff just feels like typical sequel tropes that you really don't need and usually aren't handled well.
I think that's the weird kind of paradox with this, is that because of the character that was created in the first movie, going into the backstory means we're dealing with slavery. We're talking about this, really very real thing that should be treated with care and talked about with a mature voice, right? But it's only doing that because of what was set up in the first movie. In reality, it's what you just said. It's just it's a generic 90s sequel that is trying to farm out content by adding more to the origin. It just so happens that the origin has to be tied to this, very serious topic. Yeah. And it doesn't really feel like it's... I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say it does anything super, like, offensive or anything like that, but it doesn't do anything to actually, like, use it in a proper way. It just feels like schlock. It doesn't feel like it's doing anything good with it.
I mean, it is pretty jarring, and I don't know if, like... I mean, yeah, this isn't the movie to do it, but I mean, maybe, like, sometimes you can understand having these extreme scenes, because it is important to remember, like, these horrible crimes from the past.
Oh, sure.
But yeah, like, this isn't the movie to handle that. And then like we didn't mention it, but like they're also like sawing off his hand, which because obviously he has like a hook for a hand, but yeah, like, that's like a pretty brutal like part of it.
Yeah, I mean, from a gore perspective, it's actually a really cool shot, but it's the context that makes it a bit like, because the problem is with horror movies, typically we want to be enjoying the violence, we want to enjoy the gore and the splatter and that stuff, and it's really hard to we can't really take that enjoyment out of this because this is a black man being lynched, like it's
it's
so it puts you in this really weird place, and the movie doesn't have the nuance or the care or the deft hand to handle any of that, so it's it's in a rough place. It's in a rough place with those elements. But like we said though, it's very just the idea of like trying to add more into the origin and giving him this MacGuffin that can destroy him. We're getting into Freddy Krueger territory now, where like I don't know what the third movie is, but there has to. I mean, this movie ends with him being defeated, so he's gone. So the third movie is going to have to somehow retcon a way for him to come back and have maybe a new MacGuffin, so they've got a chance of winning at the end. Which is the same problem that Freddy Krueger had after a couple of sequels. It's like, okay, we have to keep having a new way to defeat him at the end because we've already used another way, which is why you should just stop watching it 3, unless you. I mean, 4's fun to watch, but 3's the end of the real story, and I that's kind of where I stand with Freddy.
All right. Well, I don't share that stance, but I get what you mean.
That's the official Screams After Midnight stance.
No.
It says. It says.
You can stop after 5. That's fine, and then go back to New Nightmare.
Don't watch 5.
5's good.
5 sucks. No,
it doesn't.
No. So, yeah, it's a rough sequel. I guess we're pretty much done. I don't know if you have anything else you want to
add. Not really.
Oh, actually, there's one I want to add because that's actually made me laugh. So when she goes to see the shaman or whatever he is, who's got information, and he sells the not the ice cream cones, but the snowballs, the just the frozen ice flavored shit.
Yeah.
It's the frozen. You know what I mean? The crushed ice is what I meant to say. The crushed ice.
Shaved ice, I think they're called.
Shaved ice. There you go. So first of all, he's got a really good introduction where this woman's like licking his arm. Very odd. But basically, his death. So Candyman shows up in the scene after she's gotten some information, and the guy gets stung in the face with bees. So he's got this like really deformed, like blistered face, right? The cops like sort of been tailing her and been watching Annie because he suspects something. So the cop, when he tries to come in when he suspects something's happening, the guy who just got killed like gets thrown through the wall, and something about like him just coming out the wall and his like fully stung like head was just sticking out the wall like it was, just really made me laugh. It was a really over the top moment. I don't know. So I wanted to mention that.
Yeah. It might be like a little more notable if it had more like over the top stuff like that. Like, wouldn't make it like a prestigious movie or something, but at least maybe it could be, a fun schlocky sequel that you kind of talk about or have some fondness for, instead of like, trying to almost have it both ways where like, you're still trying to be like a little bit more serious, meaningful horror movie, but you're introducing just a lot of tropes and like some schlocky stuff, and that it doesn't really have the skill or content to kind of back it up.
Yeah. So I guess we're going to rate it then. Obviously it's not a great sequel. What are you giving it, Tim?
Maybe like I think a 4.5 is good. Because it's just below maybe like being like okay, and it's but again, it's not like terrible. Like, it's still watchable. I have a little bit of nostalgia for it, and it is, and again, Tony Todd is still great, so it's still good to see him in there. So there's enough there that I think it's like decent enough, but you can't really go much higher.
Yeah, I brought it to a straight 4. I think it's, like I say, it's not the worst thing ever. It's relatively watchable, but I feel like it does have bad 90s sequel written all over it, and it feels that way the entire time. Combine that with some of the other problems, combine it with bad effects, pointless narration. There's just lots of choices that have been made in this that just make it feel really odd, and not in a fun way, not in a unique way, not in a an artistic way, just in a these were just the choices that were made because they didn't know what else to do. So
at least if it was like really bad or wacky, at least you could watch it as like a fun bad movie or something. But it's not really that. Like, it's not like, I guess you can like get some like enjoyment watching with friends, especially if you like franchise movies and stuff. But it's not a great example of that type of movie.
Yep. So that is Candyman: Farewell to the Flesh. If you made it to this part of the review on YouTube, please do go into the comments and leave the word candy. I know that's really uninspired, but you know what? Nothing else popped to mind. You can, of course, like and subscribe. Those help a lot. Liking is really important on YouTube. It lets YouTube know that we're worth sharing out. So please do so. It helps us out. We mentioned Patreon earlier though for financial support. Patreon.com/MailFestTV. Really useful, really good way to support us and get some bonus content. Get us on Twitter at StreamsMidnight, and of course Tim's pose, which I almost forgot. We count down 3, 2, 1, say pose. So here we go. 3, 2, 1, pose. solid, Toby. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching scary movies, guys, and we will see you next time.